Whew. G'day everybody, yo, James, and this is another Crowdrender video where I am going to demonstrate today not only Blender 2.83, building a render farm with that, but also we've got a new version of our software coming out. Disclaimer, it's currently in early access, which means if you want to try it out, you need to be supporting our development fund. That starts from as little as $4 a month though, which is pretty cheap. You know, it's like cost of a cup of coffee or even less per month. And we really do appreciate that assistance, and it helps us keep all of our software development stuff going. So with that out of the way, we can get on and start actually installing this new build, which I'm just going to have to, move a USB from one computer to another. Because I'm actually no, that doesn't make sense. I'm installing a development build, so I'm not downloading it from the website. Now, if you want to try the publicly available build rather than the latest and greatest, you can get them pretty easily from our website. Just go to crowd-render.com. You can go to download here, but there's also a link down there, and that will take you through to the downloads page. We are actually still requiring you guys to have an account to download our software, but that's just an email and a password combination. But it does need to be a valid email because it has to be verified. So you just click through, and then you should be able to download either the publicly available builds, or when 0.2.7 is released, because it's not released yet, you'll be able to grab that here. Okay, so the main event of this video is, again, showing how to build a render farm really quickly using, well, in my case, just two PCs. I have two Windows 10 PCs, and that's what I'm going to be using. They are connected via just Ethernet. So I've got an Ethernet port, I've got an Ethernet router which has ports. Come on, James, get with the lingo. Goodness me. You can use a Wi-Fi router, that works just as well. But basically, make sure whatever computers you have are on the same network, and that should all work out fine. Anyway, you're going to see me demonstrate how to get things up and running, and hopefully we'll have some fun. That occasionally happens on these channels when I do something silly and everyone has a giggle at me, which I don't mind. Also, before we get going, now I know I'm stalling a little bit here, I just wanted to do a shout out to all the people who are helping us, because there are a lot of people, about, I think it's now 150 people on the $4 level, but 175 people all up, who are donating to this project to help keep it going, help us manage all of our costs, and we're now getting close to, well, I guess the first goal of releasing some of the early access software. So you can see here we've got these milestones where we want to actually release, hopefully eventually, all of the software, and make it open source as well. So that's what we're working towards. We're currently sitting at $925 a month. Thank you very much to everyone who has donated. Just give my thumbs up to you all. And very quickly, I'm just going to run through this page because I don't want to labor it too much. I know you guys are obviously more keen to see what's going on with Blender and how you can get your render times down, but I just want to say a huge thanks to all these people. All of these people here, you guys are very much appreciated, and we don't do a huge amount of spamming our mail list. If you've signed up for an account, you are by default opted into the newsletter, but we hardly send any newsletters out unless we have a new version. So you'll be getting you probably got an email about this video unless you saw it on YouTube, and you'll be getting probably another one when 0.2.7 is out, and very few and far between. But I just wanted to show all the lovely people's names who are helping us out. You're all very much appreciated. So thanks, guys. Thank you to all those people that just went by. Now on with the show. So obviously we have an add-on or plugin if you're new to Blender, and we have to install it to be able to set up these two computers with our software, so you can use both to render and get your render times down. So I've already installed the software on one computer. I'm not going to make you sit through doing that twice. So now I'm going to go into Edit, and I'm going to go to Preferences, and we're going to install the software on this computer. It will show up in the Render add-ons, and you can see actually, oh, there's already one in here and it's already activated. So I must have already installed this. So I need to uninstall this one first, which I will go through because it's actually, on Windows, it's a little bit trickier because of file write locks. If you don't know what they are, don't worry about that. It just means that when you go to remove it, you may get an error like this. and see access is denied. So to fix that, you just close Blender. This is if you've already got it installed, by the way. You go to Task Manager, just make sure there are no Blender processes around here. And literally the quickest way to kill it is just to go to, if we go to this PC, if I go to, I don't have much disk space left, oh dear, go to Users. I'm using a test account for today. Go to Crowdrender. Actually, no, that's not where I want to go. I want to go to App Data. So this is where Blender installs its add-ons by default. You may have a different location, but then you should know where you've put stuff if you've altered where scripts are installed by default. We go to Roaming, Blender Foundation, Blender. Also, you only need to do this on Windows. You don't need to do it on Mac or Linux. We go to 2.83, Scripts, Add-ons. And this is where Blender will, by default, along this path, or one like it for you, because you probably have a different username to Blender Tester on your computer, then this is where Crowdrender will be installed into the add-ons folder. And I'm just going to delete it like that. Uninstalled, because an add-on, really, it's just Python scripts in a folder. Uninstalling it is usually as easy as just doing that, at least for 99% of cases. So now I can start Blender back up. And I've uninstalled the old version, which did say 0.2.7, but it was a previous version because obviously I do development, so I'm constantly updating them. And it's gone. So now I just hit this button, install. So let me just do that again. We go to render. No, we don't. We go to edit, preferences. See, I told you it'd be fun. I make lots of mistakes. It's really good. Add-ons, install. And of course, we're installing it from file. I've got it on a USB drive, so I'm just going to click that. I'm going to click that. And I am going to click that. And that should install it. All right, and then we need to enable it. I'm going to save my preferences with it enabled. Doing that means that it will launch automatically every single time when Blender is turned on or when I open a new scene. And then what I have to do is find the panel. See, Crowdrender panel, that's been added. That's a good sign. And then I have to start it. Now, if you choose not to enable it by default, so if we go back into preferences, enable by default because I saved it like this. If this wasn't enabled by default when Blender starts, and every time you'd have to press the start button. So that saves you having to turn it on basically, which means whenever I go to a new scene by pressing Control N and then hitting General, it's already connected. Well, it's already started. Sorry, I should use the right terminology. There we go. Okay, so we now have version 0.2.7, and I'm just going to very quickly just grab, because I had stuck them into my laptop, just to make things extra difficult for myself. I'm going to grab my talking points, because I have some talking points about what new stuff is in this build. We're going to be very organized. Apart from, I should have had this probably in front of me to start with. Okay, so we want to go through some talking points about what's new in this version over 0.2.6, which is the currently available version, which will be superseded hopefully in the next sort of 24, 48 hours after this video has been recorded. Most likely by the time you watch this, you can head straight to the downloads page and it'll be there. So the first thing is large files. So we had a bit of an issue with larger files when you open them, when you try to connect to other nodes. There was all kinds of glitchiness. So we have a test file that's been given to us by a very nice gentleman called Phil Stopford, and I'm going to plug this file for him because he's given it to us for free. He had issues getting it to work with Crowdrender. He's actually developed it. It's on Blender Market, I think, or at least I'll drop the link in the description below for it, but it's a very realistic representation of the Earth. It has a whole bunch of really nice things about it. I think it's about $10. So if you want to just drop the Earth into your scene, check this out. It's pretty good. It is, I think, about half a gig, which was right about the golden threshold for causing all the glitchiness. And this opens now in 11 seconds, which you can time if you like, if you want to rewind the video and you want to make sure I'm not telling you fibs. It used to take, before this, anywhere between half a minute to 2 minutes, depending on the speed of your hard drive. So now we've fixed it. And also connecting, if I wanted to connect to another computer. So this is the other PC here that I've got actually connected. Well, I don't have it connected yet. I've got it installed, ready to go with Crowdrender. So I'm just going to connect now by pressing that little button. So this would take another 30 seconds. It now takes about 2 or 3 seconds for that window to disappear. So we've made some improvements where you have large files, just getting things to work. Like this whole process now takes probably less than 20 to 30 seconds, whereas before it would take 30 seconds just for the window to close, where I pressed OK. So I'm referring to this window here. So we've made some pretty big improvements, which will hopefully mean large files like this will work a heck of a lot better. Okay, second thing, missing tiles. So this is going to be kind of hard to demonstrate because it's fixed in this version, but if you have more than one more than, let's say, 2 or 3 computers connected, you would find over long animation renders, and I actually wonder if I've got some... Let me just see if I can find some frames, because I'm just jogging my memory to think we might actually have some. So if I go to desktop, Blender projects, BMW, it doesn't look like we've got any, unless they're in the temporary directory. Anyway, the problem we'd have here is that you would get parts of your image missing and they look black, or you'd be missing a tiny little strip of pixels off the far right hand side of the image. That's also fixed. So we found a bug in our code that meant it could send back an image that was slightly, ever so slightly, the wrong size. And Blender, if you try and load a render result into Blender using their API and it's not exactly the right number of pixels that you've told Blender it is, it just errors and goes, nah. And the result is a black strip or part to your image. So that's been fixed. So if you've been having missing tiles, then that should be a lot better. Okay, next thing, I'm going to start a new scene for this. So one more plug, Phil Stopford's file, link in description below. Hopefully I'll find some images that I've rendered that I'll be able to put somewhere in this video. Hopefully right now when I'm talking, if I'm going to come back and edit it later, that would be a good thing to do for me. So remind yourself, James, to do that. Really cool. It's certainly very impressive. So if you're seeing that now, hopefully you'll get the impression of how realistic and cool it is. But yeah, you can check that out. I think it's about $10 or whatever it is when you actually click on the website. But Phil's a really cool guy as well. I think you should buy from people who are decent human beings because, yeah. And also disclaimer, he is supporting our development fund as well. So just in case you thought, James is not being honest, he's plugging people's products just because they support him. No, I'm plugging it because when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's well better than what I can do. Okay, so let's open another scene. So we've basically introduced stereoscopic rendering. Well, I say introduced. We properly support it now. I wasn't aware that we actually didn't support it properly until a nice fellow who was... I think he's actually supporting our dev fund too. Amazing how many people are. He mentioned to us that this wasn't working. So stereoscopic rendering is this thing. So if I just quickly make sure I've got another computer connected. So if I go here, I want to make sure that this guy's synced. Okay. Stereoscopic rendering, if you don't know what it is, it's basically giving the illusion of depth by rendering 2 different views. In this case, what I'm showing you here, this is stereoscopic rendering by color filtering. So you'd have to obviously wear the red and the green glasses if you've ever, looked at comic books or watched videos that have this. You have to wear the funny glasses, and then you get the illusion, or should I say, the sensation of depth. It is an illusion, but you get a sensation of depth. So we've actually added support for this now. This was rendered by Crowdrender. In 0.2.6, you would have just had, I think, the right view and nothing else, or the left one, but you didn't get both. So that's fixed now. Stereoscopic rendering, done. Okay, next thing. No more temporary files cluttering up your file system. So this here is the directory where I've been doing some work on this file here, and you'll notice straight away we've got all of this crud here which has temp in it, and it's also got CR, so that obviously implicates us. CR short for Crowdrender, so apologies. Real quick, these files just help us get around Windows when it, and obviously, gosh, Sorry. Ugh, fumbling over my lack of eloquence and ability to put sentences together. Okay, these are temporary files. We need them. You don't need to know the reason why. I'll try not to techno-babble about that, but they're gone. Hopefully thumbs up. We won't pollute your project folders anymore. So if you were to go into your, like the BMW test scene, so the mic pen benchmark, you'll see there's all this crap in here. That's no more. We've re-engineered how we deal with transferring your blend file to other computers, which is why these things exist. These files exist because it's kind of hard to do it without them. But they're all now temporary files, and they don't pollute your project folders like this. See, this is the actual file here, CPU and GPU. Those are the only files that you get when you download the mic pen benchmark. All this stuff was added by Crowdrender version 0.2.6. It doesn't do that anymore. Problem solved. It does create files, but they're now temporary, which again is that's sort of part of the upgrades for 0.2.7 is now you'll notice you get temporary files in temporary folders. So all that stuff is now contained somewhere else, and when you close Blender, this stuff all disappears, which actually also results in the fifth new thing, which is massively reduced disk usage by Crowdrender. So obviously, if we're creating copies of your projects, we can chew up quite a lot of disk space. That wasn't the only thing that was chewing up disk space, though. When Crowdrender renders a tile, that tile gets saved on the render node, and then it gets transferred to your client or master computer, where it's also saved. That no longer happens in 0.2.7. The file is the image tile or the slice is sent to your client or master computer. It's loaded into Blender. Blender finishes the frame, outputs whatever you've asked it to output, and then all of those intermediate tiles, so all of the render tiles, all the temporary files when you close Blender disappear. And that saves on average. Oh, hi, love. It's all right. You're in frame, by the way. That's all right. Say hi to my wife, everybody. Are you going to say hi? No. Shall I leave this bit in?
Yeah, leave it.
I think I'm going to leave it in. I'm just telling everyone about the new software. All right. Goodbye. Best of luck. Cool. I think throughout the entire pandemic, that's probably happened to everyone who's been on a Zoom call or who's been filming anything. Is someone just randomly comes into their room. But that's cool. I love my wife, so I'm not too fussed about her appearing in our videos. Okay, so back to it. Like I was mentioning, all of that data is now temporary. When you close Blender, it's all removed. I personally saved about 5 gigabytes of disk space when I went from 0.2.6 to using 0.2.7, and I cleaned up everything in this folder. So this is all now temporary. And I saved about 5 gigabytes of disk space. Also, the same thing goes for here. All of these files in the server directory, save for this file, which is a copy, are also temporary. So render tiles won't be stored. Temporary files on the client won't be stored. The only thing that's stored now is just a copy of the master's Blender file on every render node because it needs it. Otherwise, you'd have to keep uploading it all the time. So that's what's new. Now I guess we should do a few tests. And again, one of the things I was thinking for this video was to just show you a few of, well, number one, how to get it working, what's new, but also just a few of the things we test when we're shaking stuff down. So we call it a shakedown test by just using the software and seeing if it breaks in normal everyday use. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to order a cloud node. So if you haven't used our cloud system before, on our website, there should be a link to that. Cloud rendering. So this is a partnership with blendergrid.com. And essentially, we partner with them so that we can give people access to BlenderGrid nodes, which are, I think, 36 threads, 60 gig of RAM Xeon-based servers. So you can get access to those computers from Blender Grid through Crowdrender. And what we do is we take, our share of the revenue, I guess, from that, and that's how we help support our project on top of all the development fund stuff. So there's a couple of ways you can support us. One way is to support the actual development fund, which everything goes into development. Or if you want to do some cloud rendering, you can try our cloud rendering service. It's a bit new. I would say that it was built in 2018, but it's still actually quite new, and we're still making improvements to it. We do use temporary instances or spot instances, which means that you kind of have to babysit it. It's not ready for hands-off, just submit it and render it yet. So I'm going to show you how I use it, and then you can decide if it's something you want to try. We are going to make some pretty huge upgrades to it, which means it should be robust enough for production rendering. Right now, it's, I think, good enough if you're able to sort of sit there and watch over it. If you went to sleep and let it render all night, there's a chance that it may stop rendering during the night. So just to let you guys know, that's kind of where it's at the moment. But it is hopefully going to help us keep pushing development because, as I said, revenue goes partly to Blender Grid for obviously paying for the render nodes and all that kind of stuff, and part of it comes to us so that we can keep doing what we do. So once you've decided how many render nodes you're going to add, I'm just going to add one. I am going to press the start button. This can take up to sort of 5 minutes for you to be able to actually start using them, and that's just because they take a while to spool up. But generally, you won't start seeing your credit reduce until you're basically able to connect to it. Like I said, you do have to babysit it, but I'm going to show you the whole process as we go through this. Okay, so some of the things I like to test. Obviously, we've tested Eevee, and we're going to test now cycles. Some of the other cool things, like we got Blender 2.83 out, so I probably should do some stuff about that. We've now got adaptive sampling, so one of the things I like to do is just have some computers connected. So we've got this machine, which actually represents this computer here. So this computer is going to render. I can actually turn that off, so if I don't want it to render, I can just do that. But obviously I want to use both of these PCs to render, otherwise there's not much point in our software, because that's pretty much what it does. It lets you use multiple computers. And we're going to try doing a cycles render. Now I am going to just do one with adaptive samplings off and 128 samples, and excuse me while I've got an itchy nose. And we'll just let that render. And then we'll turn adaptive samplings on. Just make sure it's working, because adaptive samplings is pretty cool. I'm going to put a card in the video, sort of about now-ish, and you can look at the adaptive samplings video we did. Adaptive sampling, sorry, samplings. That's not right. So that was just a brief introduction to adaptive sampling before Blender 2.83 came out, because adaptive sampling has been available in the experimental, the alpha and beta builds for quite a while. And when I'm talking about alpha beta builds, I mean Blender, so Blender 2.83 and also 2.90. 2.90, I should probably say. Okay. Cool. And we've still got stereoscopic on, so I might turn that off, but not until I finish this test, because then it wouldn't really be a fair test. So if you've got any ideas about what we could do in the next video, if you've got any things you'd like us to demonstrate, feel free to drop your suggestions in the comments box. Gosh, I'm having a terrible day with English today. Whew. Like, we value feedback. We really value trying to help you guys produce your art, produce what your hopes, dreams, all that kind of stuff. In Blender, obviously, I can't help with every hope and dream, but I can surely help with getting render times down, because that's what we're about, man. And surely you would want to get your render times down, because just staring at computers crunch numbers is not all that entertaining. All right, cool. So 1 minute 55, and we will put adaptive sampling on, and just see. Well, here's the thing. And I'm just going to render it a couple more times. And the reason why I'm going to do that, those of you who are obviously diehard Crowdrender users, if there is such a thing, I think there are. There's certainly people who are getting in touch with us almost daily about software development and how they can get the best out of the system. But one of the reasons why I'm just doing a couple of renders before I put adaptive sampling on is because our load balancer takes a few frames to kind of get it right. And now, what's a load balancer, you might ask? Basically, it's part of our software that figures out how much of the frame each computer should get. Because at the moment, as of 0.2.7 and every version previous to that, we are a tile splitting renderer. What that means is we split each image up into tiles and each computer gets a tile. We do not do frame splitting at the moment, just in case you're wondering. We will do that in the new version, the new system that we're designing. It'll actually be able to do both. What that means is, as you can see, the time has dropped already. It means that our computer... Gosh, I'm not cut out for this some days. What it means is our software is trying to calculate how much each computer should render of the entire image. It does this mainly by using how much the computers were able to render on the previous frame. So if they haven't rendered this project yet, they have no idea, and so they just guess. And usually they are going to guess something which is not optimized. A lot of people have said, hey, how come Crowdrender is slower than just using one of my computers? This is probably why. And you'll probably find that if you persist and let it render a few frames, it will actually get a whole lot better until it eventually sort of bottoms out. It reaches this asymptotic optimum, which it can get close to but never actually reach. And then you know that, okay, it's not going to get any better than that. So this is the fastest it's going to be. And literally I've seen some pretty dramatic changes in the first render to the last render. We're talking like orders, way, way, way better after you've given it a few frames. But like I said, we're working on a new system which is going to make this obsolete, and it will no longer take anywhere near as long. But I'm just going to make sure I've got it on. Okay, it's on automatic at the moment. Cool. Good to know. And then we can test manual mode, because a lot of people who say, look, Crowdrender is really great because it's one of the render farm software packages that actually does tile splitting, so I can accelerate a single image. But it suffers from this issue, which actually means it's sometimes slower. So we created an edit menu here where you can actually just control how much of the screen each computer gets manually, which will save you having to do a few renders of what might be a very, very intense image, which could take a while. Okay, so now we can turn on adaptive sampling. Hooray! And I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm just going to turn it on. And then we are going to render and see if it's any quicker, which I imagine it would be. Okay, so 42 seconds, call it 43 seconds to beat. Yeah, I think it's going to beat it. Wow. There you go. Adaptive sampling makes an enormous difference. Now, you should always do, when you're doing testing like this, you should always go back and just turn adaptive sampling off again, just to be sure. So 8 seconds 42. So we've turned adaptive sampling back off, and the previous time was about 40, just short of 43 seconds. So adaptive sampling can, in some cases, make an enormous difference. We're doing a lot of testing with it right now. Hopefully we're going to be able to do another video where we show you the ins and outs and how to get the best of it out of it, particularly in the context of, a render farm. So hopefully that's going to be some good stuff for you guys to get stuck into and help you tune your render farms. Okay, 38 seconds. Excuse me. All right, 38 seconds. So let's just go to slot 2, turn it back on one more time. So you can see it's probably still optimizing itself because it's managed to get the time from 43 seconds down to 38 seconds now. So yeah, 8 seconds 41 versus 38 seconds. All right, so that's pretty cool. So the other things that we test normally before release are some of the real-time update features. Well, it's only really one feature, but there are certain things that you can change without having to upload your blend file. So normally, I believe with most render farms, whether they be online or whatnot, you have to do this. You have to connect to them usually. Well, actually, no, I don't think they make you connect to them, but you have to upload your project file. If you make any changes to your scene, in order to see them, you need to upload your project file all over again. So this is the cloud node I was talking about. So obviously, as I've been rambling on and talking, this thing's actually now come online and I've connected to it, and it just works the same as the other nodes. You just connect to it. You can choose to have it render or not. Now that I've got a nice powerful computer to replace my local one, I'm just going to do that and turn my local off. So back to talking about the real-time updates. So you just basically can use Blender pretty much like you would normally, and Crowdrender will take care of a few tweaks that you can make without you needing to push the whole project file again. If you do need to push the whole project file again, you just do this. You press resync. You can see there it's uploading. Now this computer's in East Coast America, probably, most likely. I'm in East Coast Australia, all the way across the Pacific Ocean. So there is a little bit of time delay and a lot of distance, which means it won't update as fast as this guy, which if you blink, you miss it. Because obviously that computer's under my desk next to this one. All right, so some of the things we can do, if I go into camera mode, and I'm going to turn off, I think we've proved stereoscopic rendering works properly. So I am going to scale this up a bit. I'm going to do the whole rotate thing, and I'm just checking that all the transforms work, because you can modify object transforms. So think composition. If you want to move something, if you're not happy with where it is, if you get a frame back, so let's just say we rendered there we go, it's rendering. The load balancer is going to do something funny with this because it hasn't actually had that computer render yet. So if we zoom all the way in, oh, there it is. So let's just say you weren't happy with this frame. I didn't get to talk about that other thing just then, it interrupted me, so lost that opportunity. If you didn't like it, you could change it. So let's just say I thought, I want something else over here, so I can duplicate that. I haven't had to upload anything. So no uploading of the file, it's ready straight away. This can be really handy if you've got like a really heavy scene and you only want to tweak one tiny thing. Ordinarily, you'd have to upload the whole project again, but this allows you just to do a little tweak. It's there literally within a few tenths of a second, even all the way over to America from Australia. And sorry, I'm not picking my nose, I promise. I'm just itchy. Allergies. Ugh. Also, what I was saying about the load balancer is this. It's realized, oh wow, that computer is actually powerful, but it takes a few frames for it to actually realize how powerful it is. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to demonstrate manual mode. So we don't want this guy getting 75% of the screen. We want, actually, this dude should probably get most of it. So let's try 90 and 10 and see how that works. Also, all the render settings are all synced in real time. And generally you just use Blender like you use Blender. And that other computer just helps. Wow, that was a lot quicker, wasn't it? That other computer, which I got from Blender Grid, is now helping me render. And we can also add some stuff. So I'm not expecting this to be a feature that everybody uses, but you can just start chucking primitives in. So I'm going to chuck another cube in. And again, I'm doing a shakedown test, so I just want to throw stuff at it until it begs for mercy, basically. Because I'm pretty sure most users of our software don't go easy on it, and you shouldn't. You should give it hell. All right, so let's see how that goes. So 90% for the cloud node and about 10% for this one. The other computer I've got here. Now the brief delay here is basically it's having to get the frame back from all the way overseas, which I will show you in a second, because this is just irritating how it maximizes this window all the time. Sorry, that's Blender. It's just doing what it does. But I'll just render this one more time. Do I have adaptive sampling on? Do I? I do. That last image was a bit noisy, which kind of tempts me into using the denoiser. Yeah, let's do that next. Okay. Let's render still. Oh god, it maximizes it. Flip me down, that is annoying. I can stop it. I can't even select the bottom edge of it. God damn you, Blender. Obey me. No, I shouldn't rat on Blender too much, you know. It is a pretty amazing software package for the price tag. But oh gosh, if this isn't the frustrating. Oh, I give up. I give up. You win, Blender. You want to maximize, you maximize. Meh. It used to be that you could, I don't know where it is now. It used to be somewhere here where you could basically tell it whether it would render in here or somewhere else. I think that's moved because it used to be up here. It moved somewhere else. I don't know where it is now. I'm just lost. But there it is. So what we can do, after a few renders, we can actually turn this off and it should be fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this window. So that was the old time. Let's just go back to this. So we had 11 seconds. Good, I guess. I mean, no one's ever seen this particular configuration before. Actually, that's probably not true. I'm pretty sure most people render something like this. Okay, so let's just render that. So we should get something around 10 seconds-ish. You can see that's my computer rendering, and the cloud node is already finished and sent back its tile. So it looks like it hasn't quite realized in the automatic load balancing mode that it should be giving most of it to the cloud node. And we can go back to manual mode for that. So if you're going to tune using manual mode, you go, yeah, no, this is rubbish. Give me 0.95. And let's see if we can beat 11 seconds. And this time, there we go, rendering. And then you can watch it get the tile. There you go. That's what I wanted to show you. See, now it's getting the image tile. And when that's finished, we should be able to see it. Okay, it took 11 seconds, so maybe we went a bit over the top. How about if we go back to... Actually, let's give it one more render on 95 and 5. I'll just watch what's going on. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit too much. So let's just back this down to, go 0.85 this time. And you can just tweak like this until, like if you're going to submit this for an animation render, you may use automatic, but if you preferred, you could just tweak whatever shot you've got. Still 11 seconds. I don't think I'm going to be able to get fast on that, guy, so I'm going to abandon just tweaking this to insanity. But one of the other things we want to do is we want to stick on denoising cars. There's a little bit of noise in this scene. I'd like to get rid of that if I can. And a great way to do that would be denoising. So let's go and use the new denoising stuff, shall we? Denoising support in Crowdrender was added in 0.2.3, but we didn't update in 0.2.4 because in 0.2.3 you had to resync your scene. Oops. That was an oversight on our part. 0.2.4 that was fixed. So now it works like this from 0.2.4 through to this particular version. So if I go and add denoising data, so that gives me the denoising passes. And now what I can do is I think it's a filter, denoising, yep. Then we connect the image, we connect the denoising normal and the albedo. I'm not sure what denoising depth and shadowing, variance, intensity, and clean are all used for because we only have these inputs. So if someone knows how to use denoising better than I do, please either link to your own tutorial in the comment section or send us an email. I would very much like to know what all this other stuff does because I just haven't really had the time to investigate it. Okay, the other thing that we also support is Cryptomat. So let's do a mat crypto. So I'm going to add just object, because obviously we've got a whole bunch of objects in there, so this would be pretty cool to play around with. So obviously we're doing a new release. This stuff, again, Cryptomat was also supported in 0.2, 3, and 4. However, every time we make a new build, we want to make sure, after doing all our other testing, that when we're playing around with this stuff, it all still works. All right, I'm actually going to use the pick. No, I wanted to use the pick. Listen to me. Whew. Okay, cool. So now we can just go ahead and render this. It's going to take a trifling 10 or 11 seconds to render, which is pretty rad. And don't worry, after this we'll just do a few renders of some proper looking benchmarks, because clearly a bunch of primitives is not really a fair test of dealing with real stuff. I've already done 250 frames consecutively in animation mode of the Mike Penn scene. No problems, no missing tiles, so we've actually been making sure that things really do work. Okay, so it's compositing, and there we go. That's kind of nice. So that's without denoising, and that's with denoising. Without, with. Sorry. Yeah, without with. There you go. So that's pretty cool. The other thing we can do now is we can go into the compositing view, and we can see that we've also got all of the Cryptomat passes working, and obviously our mat is going to be blank at the moment because we haven't selected anything. So let's put pick back in, and I'm going to pick, what's going to say, I'm going to pick this guy and this guy, and now we should see that our mat is working in our final image. There we go. So we've separated out the icosphere and Suzanne. No problem. All done. Excuse me. All done from tiles put back together from separate machines. So that's a bit of a ripper, that. I'm pretty happy. This is looking really good in ordinary use. Obviously, I'm not going to make you subject to all the tests that I'm going to do to this after I stop filming, but just be aware that we are probably going to do a few more tests. This is one of the favorite ones that I like to do. Just a benchmark test to make sure that this particular file is working, because this particular file has caused a lot of crashes in the past. Well, actually, to be fair to it, it didn't cause the crashes, we did. But it's usually a good idea to run this one just to make sure we haven't undone any of the changes that fix those crashes. So, you know, this is kind of the stuff we do as developers. Just make sure we haven't broken anything, basically. Call it regression testing if you're interested. Okay, so this is going to be a slow scene for this other computer to do, like, sorry. Okay, so it looks like it's stuck at uploading. Tip, if you ever get a machine that's stuck for whatever reason uploading, just disconnect from it. It's still there, hasn't gone anywhere. Pops back into your view a second later, or 2 or 3 seconds later, and then you just reconnect to it. This is a pretty easy workaround for just sometimes glitchy networks, random stuff like that. And there you go, now it's uploading. However, if you do find that there are problems that you cannot get around, do please drop us a line. We have a support ticket system. So if you go to the options, if you go to the header of or the menu of our website, you can go to more and you can submit a support ticket. And you can go, okay, click here. And then you can fill out our form. And this is actually now a proper support system. So all of the guys, me, Jeremy, Chris, are watching it. And we assign your tickets to ourselves and we work on your problems and try and get you a solution. So there you go. Obviously, if you are a development fund member, subscriber, you do get priority in the queue though. So bear that in mind. But we are trying to get to everybody and making sure that even if you are not a supporter of our development fund, we do eventually get to you. Okay, so that's synced, and then we're just going to hit render. Also, like, I don't know, some of, like, let me just cancel this for a sec. The latest mic pan scenes for Forever and a Day have had 1,225 AA samples. It used to be 400. So if anyone can sort of tell us the reason why they increased it, anyone from Blender's watching this, or maybe Mike himself, I'm pretty sure this used to be 400. Now it's 1,225. I'm not really sure what it is for the actual official open data Blender benchmark, but I'd be really, really curious to know why that changed. One of my guesses is that because as hardware got faster and as the software got better, the render time kept coming down so much that there wasn't actually much render time. It was more setup time. Because if you've noticed, before you actually start drawing anything, you've actually got a few seconds where the computer's like building BVH, loading textures, doing all that kind of stuff. Because remember, once we set up a scene in a lab where we had 8 workstations with GPU cards in them, and the render was about 16 seconds, 14 of which was just getting all of the data into the graphics card, and then the graphics cards just absolutely murdered the scene. Like, there was about 2 seconds of render time, and then it was just done. That may have been on the 400 sample setting, though. So I'm wondering if that was the change, if they went to a much higher number of samples to actually stress test your hardware a bit more, because when your hardware is nice and cool, it clocks faster. I'm pretty sure it's the same for graphics cards. It's certainly the case for CPUs. So if your benchmark takes only 20 seconds, it's probable that it's not actually going to reach its operating temperature, like steady state. It's going to be climbing, but then it's going to go back down to whatever it was before you started rendering, which means you're going to have probably a higher clock speed than you would have had if you let let's call it an average clock speed, than if you let the render progress for, let's just say, 10 minutes. So I think it may be that they've done that to get a longer render time so that the hardware reaches its sort of steady state temperature, stable average clock speed, and then we get a better representation of what you would do if you did it like an animation, which could take, hours, maybe even days. Okay, cool. So that's working. And that's pretty much most of the things that I'm going to test. We've covered a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm just going to sum up for you guys. We're supporting Blender 2.83 first and foremost, which is the new latest release, and we've been supporting that on Mac, Windows, and Linux, and that's still the case for Blender 2.83. Also, the publicly available builds should still support Blender 2.83 as well. It's just that you're missing support for all of the Cryptomatte denoising. I believe adaptive sampling does work though, because we did a video about that using 2.9 with the publicly available builds, which did work. But the latest version 0.2.7 tackles large files much better. Missing tiles shouldn't be a problem. Stereoscopic rendering is now properly supported, where it wasn't before, and we don't clutter up your disk with a lot of temporary files. It saves you a lot of disk space, which hopefully makes it a lot more reliable as well, because if you run out of disk space, your render's going to stop, because there's nowhere to put all the render tiles that are coming from your nodes. Alright guys, well, that's pretty much a wrap-up, I think, for this video. Hopefully you guys have found it informative and useful and exciting that there's a new version of the software either out or will be out. Depends on just how the testing goes. I mean, if I'm honest, this is the third time I've done this video, and each time I was doing it, I found bugs, and I decided to stop and fix them. So we've managed to fix all of those things now, but this is looking pretty good and ready for release. And all I would ask at the end of this video is, if you've made it this far, you're clearly a diehard fan, so maybe give us a like, a subscribe, and share it with someone else who you think might find our software helpful. If you're not already a supporter, consider joining. It really helps us out, me in particular. This is currently all I do for a living, and we've got a long way to go before my life is actually sustainable. So that's my sob story. But we're really grateful to all the people who are subscribing. You guys are amazing, because it's making this whole thing possible. And the future's looking pretty cool. Like, I guess one way to pitch this real quick, without drawing out the video too much, is to sort of say what we're hoping to do is to deliver a free and open source render farm software package that anyone can use in the similar sort of spirit to Blender. And we've got a goal to get this new system that we're building up to scratch and hopefully out before the end of the year, at least at the beginning of next year. This year kind of threw a spanner in the works for everybody, so I'm not sure how we're going to pull through, but we are still trying our darnest to do it. So development started on the new system, things are looking good. And yeah, we're going to have it up on GitHub at some point, probably starting with just all of the API stuff, because we want you guys to be able to develop for it as well, and develop your, if you've got an application or if you've got a plugin, if you want to distribute compute over many nodes in Blender or in any other application, we want to assist you guys in doing that. So stay tuned for that. And that's all from me, guys. I hope you found the video informative, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.
Perfect.